You could try. You hear it, right? The buzzing.
I don't hear anything, Claire.
There were ghosts around me, everywhere I'd arrived. The face was unmistakable. Galus Duncan. I remember the date she told me, the year she came through the stones. 1968. This was no ghost. Galus was here. A younger version of her. But she is...
The Highlands have always been a land of secrets, where love can bloom in the shadow of ancient rivalries, and one wrong step can spark a war. In Outlander, Blood of My Blood, Episode 1 takes us deep into that world, long before Claire and Jamie's story ever began. Here we meet Ellen McKenzie and Brian Fraser, two hearts destined to find each other, yet trapped on opposite sides of a clan feud that has already claimed generations. Their story begins in grief, moves through danger, and flirts with a love so forbidden it could tear the Highlands apart. But in a land where loyalty to your clan outweighs loyalty to your own heart, how far will they go before duty demands they walk away? The episode opens with the death of Jacob McKenzie, the powerful and feared leader of Clan McKenzie. His passing is more than a family tragedy. It's the spark that will set the clan's future ablaze. Ellen, his beloved daughter, sits silently beside his lifeless body, the weight of loss pressing heavily upon her. Her eyes are dry, but her heart is breaking, not just for her father, but for the uncertainty that lies ahead. Jacob left no clear heir, and that means only one thing. Her brothers, Colum and Dougal, will fight for the lairdship. Their rivalry, already simmering for years, is about to boil over. Mrs. Fitz, ever the watchful matriarch of Castle Leoch, helps Ellen prepare for the funeral. She speaks gently but with purpose, reminding Ellen that without her father's protection, her future will likely be decided for her. Marriage, once something Jacob promised she'd never be forced into for political gain, now feels inevitable. Ellen listens in silence, but inside, a storm brews. She remembers the day her father gave her his McKenzie plaid, a garment reserved for men, as a symbol of his belief in her independence. He had sworn she'd never have to marry for the sake of the clan. But promises, she now realizes, are fragile things when power is at stake. The funeral is a grand and solemn affair. The McKenzies gather, their voices rising in Gaelic song as Jacob's body is carried through the rugged highlands to his final resting place. Ellen's sisters, Jocasta and Janet, arrive, each bringing with them reminders of the lives they've built away from the castle. Jocasta, sharp-tongued and proud, insists that she and Janet, as married women, should lead the procession. But tradition and memory override her protest. Ellen is placed at the front, a sign to all that she was her father's favorite. The look Jocasta gives her says it all. Favoritism can be as dangerous as it is cherished. After the burial, Colum and Dougal's tension is impossible to ignore. Colum is measured and calculating, his sharp mind often undercut by his physical ailment. Dougal is hot-blooded, quick to act with his sword before his tongue. Ned Gowan, the clan's legal advisor, quietly admits to Colum that Jacob's death has left the clan divided. Many are unsure who should lead, and in the Highlands, uncertainty is an invitation for enemies to strike. Those enemies are already at the door. Raiders descend on the McKenzie cattle, hoping to test the clan's strength now that Jacob is gone. Dougal rides out with his men, cornering the thieves. His message is swift and brutal. He maims the raider leader, sending a clear warning that the McKenzies may have lost their laird, but not their bite. It's a display of dominance, but one Colum sees as reckless. In their private quarrel afterward, Colum accuses Dougal of lacking diplomacy, while Dougal mocks Colum's infirmity. Neither will say it aloud, but both know they are fighting not just for the clan's safety, but for the right to rule it. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of Castle Leoch, another thread of this story begins to weave. Murtaugh Fitzgibbons approaches his friend Brian Fraser, urging him to attend the upcoming McKenzie gathering. Murtaugh promises it will be worth it for the potential matches, though Brian is reluctant. His family has long despised the McKenzies, and Brian has no desire to play politics. But Murtaugh's persistence, and perhaps the unspoken pull of fate, wears him down. At the home of Deirdre, a powerful ally, they encounter Lord Lovett, Simon Fraser, Brian's grandfather, whose disdain for the McKenzies runs deep. He openly celebrates Jacob's death, recalling old grievances over land and title. Yet when he learns of Murtaugh's plan to attend the gathering, he seizes the opportunity for his own schemes. Lovett orders Murtaugh to spy on the McKenzies and insists Brian accompany him, whether he likes it or not. It's at this dinner that we meet Julia Morrison, a young maid serving in Lovett's household, and the future mother of Claire. Lovett's lecherous grasp is interrupted by Brian's quick intervention, saving Julia from his unwanted advances. Deirdre, watching quietly, later warns Julia to never be alone with the laird. Her words carry the weight of experience. She knows too well what dangers lurk behind polite smiles in noble houses. Back at Castle Leoch, the air is thick with preparation for the gathering. Ellen moves quietly through the castle, speaking privately with Colum. She confides that she believes he should lead, not Dougal, though she knows such words could set fires she cannot put out. That night, the castle's halls echo with laughter and music as guests arrive, each with their own motives, and among them is a man who will change Ellen's life forever. Brian Fraser. Their first meeting is nothing like a courtship. He is in the stables, cooling his temper after being mocked by a McKenzie clansman. She enters by chance, unaware of who he is. Their eyes meet, and for a moment, the world falls silent. No clan names, no rivalries, just two strangers drawn to each other as if by something older than time. They speak little, but enough to plant a seed neither will forget. Before they part, Brian asks her to meet him at the bridge the following night. She agrees. Neither yet knows the cost of what they've just set in motion, because in the Highlands, love is never just love. It's a choice that can unite clans, or destroy them. The day after their first meeting, the Highlands seems somehow different to Ellen. The air feels lighter, though the tension within Castle Leoch is anything but. News of Dougal's clash with the raiders has traveled fast, and whispers of retaliation hang over the clan like an approaching storm. Still, Ellen's mind drifts again and again to the man in the stables, the quiet steadiness in his eyes, the way his words lingered in the air. She doesn't yet know his name, but she knows she will see him again. The day passes in a blur of gathering preparations. Music and laughter pour from the great hall as more guests arrive, each bearing gifts, rumors, and thinly veiled ambitions. Among them is the wealthy Grant family, led by Laird Isaac, whose son Malcolm makes no secret of his interest in Ellen. His courtship is persistent but calculated, an obvious attempt to tie the McKenzies to his clan through marriage. Ellen receives him with politeness, but her heart remains untouched. Elsewhere in the hall, Ned Gowan strikes up a tense conversation with a man calling himself Henry Beauchamp, Claire's father, though no one here yet knows it. Henry is posing as a member of the Grant clan, acting as their scribe, and his sudden presence raises Ned's suspicions. The air between them is cautious, words measured like moves on a chessboard. Henry insists his loyalties lie with the Grants, but Ned sees the truth hiding in his eyes. This is a man with secrets, and secrets in the Highlands are dangerous things. After the Grants depart, Ned shares his theory with Colum, certain that the cattle raid was not their doing. Whoever is behind it remains in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the night deepens, Ellen slips away from the noise of the great hall. Her heart beats faster with each step toward the bridge, her mind caught between excitement and the knowledge that she is doing something dangerous. She waits in the moonlight, the cold stone beneath her hands, until footsteps sound behind her. Brian appears, and for a moment, they simply stand and look at each other. Names are exchanged, and with them, the truth. He is a Fraser, she a McKenzie. The realization hangs heavy in the air, but neither turns away. They speak in quiet tones, voices barely above the whisper of the river below, sharing pieces of themselves as if weaving a secret thread between their hearts. By the time they part, the danger of their connection is undeniable, yet so is the pull between them. They agree to meet again, knowing full well they are treading on forbidden ground. Back at the gathering, Murtaugh keeps a watchful eye on the festivities, only to be approached by Jocasta. She has noticed his glances toward Ellen and wastes no time in warning him that her sister is destined for something greater than the affection of a man with no power. Murtaugh, loyal and unshaken, tells her he does not believe any McKenzie lives in another's shadow, least of all Ellen. Jocasta smirks, unconvinced, but her eyes betray the bitterness of someone who has always felt second best. Tensions come to a head when Dougal catches wind of Malcolm Grant's continued interest in Ellen. His protective nature, mingled with his own pride, ignites a fury that Colum quietly fans. Colum's reasoning is strategic. If Dougal's temper leads him into trouble, it could weaken his claim to the lairdship. When Dougal learns Ellen was seen slipping away earlier, he assumes she was with Malcolm, and his anger becomes a weapon. Gathering his men, he storms out to intercept the Grants on the road, confronting Malcolm with accusations. Words turn to blows, and Malcolm finds himself beaten until he swears Ellen was not with him. The Grants leave with their pride wounded and a promise of revenge on their lips. When Ellen returns to Castle Leoch, she is met not with welcome but interrogation. Dougal demands answers. Colum watches with calculating eyes, and Ned steps in to urge caution. Ellen, her chin held high, refuses to explain herself, unwilling to betray the secret she now carries. Later, behind closed doors, Colum and Ned discuss the damage done. Colum suggests repairing relations through a marriage alliance between Ellen and Malcolm, but Ned reminds him of Jacob's promise that Ellen would never be used as a pawn. Colum's silence in response says enough. Promises to him are worth only as much as they serve the clan. Far away from Castle Leoch, the story takes an unexpected turn. In the Scottish Highlands of the 1920s, Henry and Julia Beauchamp are driving through mist-covered roads. Julia, radiant and quietly anxious, reveals she is pregnant. Claire is going to have a sibling. Their tender moment is shattered when a stag bolts across the road, forcing Henry to swerve. The car careens off the path and plunges into a river. Miraculously, they survive, scrambling to the bank in the cold night air. But as Henry turns to help Julia, she is already climbing the hill toward Craig na Dun, drawn to the strange hum of the standing stones. He calls out, panic in his voice, as she vanishes before his eyes. In the stillness that follows, Henry is left alone, drenched, shivering, and unaware that Julia has just crossed into another century. Back in the 18th century, Ellen lies awake in her chamber, the sound of the river still in her mind, as if it calls her back to that bridge. Somewhere out there, Brian Fraser is thinking of her too, and the space between them feels both impossibly wide and dangerously small. In a world ruled by clan law and blood loyalty, neither yet realizes how much their hearts will cost them. The following days at Castle Leoch are restless ones. The gathering has ended, but the ripples of what happened linger like echoes in the stone halls. Whispers follow Ellen wherever she goes, some born of admiration for her poise, others dripping with suspicion over her absence the night of the Grant debacle. She ignores them, outwardly calm, but inside, her thoughts are consumed by the memory of Brian's voice and the warmth in his eyes. Every stolen glance from that night replays in her mind, each one sharper and more dangerous than the last. In the council chamber, Colum meets with Ned Gowan behind closed doors. Their conversation circles the same problems. The clan is fractured, the Grants are insulted, and Dougal's temper is becoming harder to control. Ned warns that if the Grants decide to retaliate, the McKenzies might find themselves surrounded by enemies, not just rivals. Colum listens in silence, fingers steepled, his mind working through possibilities. At last, he says the words Ned feared. Ellen's marriage could solve everything. If she were to wed Malcolm Grant, it would forge an alliance that might prevent bloodshed. Ned reminds him again of Jacob's promise, but Colum's expression doesn't waver. He has already decided that the promise of a dead man weighs less than the survival of the clan. Meanwhile, Dougal has taken to drinking more heavily, his pride stung by Colum's subtle manipulations. In his frustration, he seeks comfort in the company of others, moving between the tavern and the training yard with a restless energy that unsettles those around him. His men are loyal, but even they can see that his judgment is clouded. Every time he looks at Ellen, his jaw tightens, not just from worry for her, but from the gnawing sense that her choices could tip the scales in his brother's favor. Murtaugh, ever observant, notices Ellen's distracted state. When he finally catches her alone, he speaks plainly, warning her that any connection with a Fraser could be dangerous, even fatal. Ellen meets his concern with a steady gaze, telling him that some things are worth the risk. Murtaugh studies her for a long moment before nodding once, as though recognizing a truth he cannot change. Still, he promises to keep an eye on her. His loyalty to her is unshakable as it is unspoken. Far from the tensions of the castle, Brian Fraser tends to his family's estate. His father's disapproval of the McKenzies runs deep, and Brian knows any association with them would be met with anger. Yet his mind keeps drifting to the bridge, to the moment Ellen's hand brushed his, and to the quiet certainty that she is unlike anyone he has ever known. Murtaugh arrives with news from the gathering, careful to omit certain details, but he cannot hide the way his words linger on Ellen's name. Brian tries to mask his reaction, but Murtaugh sees right through him. There's a glint of warning in his eyes, but also a trace of amusement. Murtaugh knows that once the heart is set, no counsel can turn it away. Back in the 1920s, Henry Beauchamp's search for Julia becomes more desperate. For days he scours the Highlands, questioning locals who only shake their heads at his wild tale of a woman vanishing into thin air. His clothes are torn, his voice hoarse, but he refuses to give up. At last, he returns to Craignadoon, standing before the stones in the early dawn light. He feels nothing. No hum, no pull, only the cold wind cutting across the hill. Still, he steps closer, laying his hand against the largest stone, as if by will alone he can bridge the impossible distance between them. In the 18th century, Julia Morrison Beauchamp wakes on the grassy slope of the same hill, the standing stones looming above her. The air smells different, the sky somehow clearer, and the distant sound of hoofbeats carries on the wind. She stumbles to her feet, her clothes soaked from the river, and begins to walk, unaware that she has stepped into a world where her life will take a path she could never have imagined. Back at Castle Leoch, Ellen receives an unexpected visitor. Malcolm Grant himself, arriving under the banner of peace. His smile is charming, his tone carefully respectful, but Ellen senses the calculation behind every word. Colum greets him warmly, while Dougal watches from the shadows, his distrust of the Grants unshaken. Over a private meal, Colum steers the conversation toward the possibility of union, speaking of peace between their clans and the strength it would bring. Ellen remains silent, her eyes fixed on the flicker of the fire, feeling the walls of her father's promise begin to close in. That night, she slips from the castle once more, her cloak pulled tight against the wind. She makes her way to the bridge, heart pounding, unsure if Brian will come. When he steps out of the darkness, relief floods her, but it's quickly followed by fear, because now she knows what they are risking. They talk for hours beneath the stars, their voices carrying over the water, until finally, he takes her hand. In that moment, there is no feud, no politics, only the quiet truth that whatever happens next, they are no longer strangers. The secret between Ellen and Brian begins to unravel faster than either of them could have feared. At first, it's just a passing glance in the great hall, a smile that lingers too long, or the faintest hint of recognition when their paths cross. But in the charged atmosphere of Castle Leoch, even the smallest gestures are noticed. Whispers begin again, low voices behind closed doors, servants exchanging knowing looks. And then comes the moment neither can take back. One afternoon, Ellen is returning from the stables when Dougal intercepts her. His expression is grim, his questions sharp. Where has she been? Who has she spoken to? She meets his gaze without flinching, offering no answers. Dougal's suspicion hardens into certainty, and his protective fury turns dangerously close to rage. That night, Colum summons Ellen to his chambers, The air is heavy with the scent of burning peat, the fire casting long shadows across the walls. Colum speaks softly but with the weight of a man who knows his power. He tells her that rumors of her meeting with a Fraser have reached him, and that such a connection could destroy everything their father built. Ellen holds her ground, reminding him of Jacob's promise that she would never be forced into a marriage for the sake of the clan. Colum's eyes narrow, his voice lowering to a near whisper. Sometimes, he says, the needs of the living outweigh the promises of the dead. She leaves the room with her head held high, but the truth is already pressing down on her. Colum will not let this go. Far away, Brian receives a message from Murtagh, warning him that the McKenzies are watching closely. Murtagh's words are blunt. If this continues, there will be blood. Brian's first instinct is to protect Ellen, but he knows that even seeing her again could put her in greater danger. For a moment, he considers staying away, but the thought of leaving her to face her brother's schemes alone is unbearable. He makes his choice. He will see her, whatever the cost. Meanwhile, in the 18th century, Julia Morrison begins to navigate her strange new reality. Her arrival in the Highlands has not gone unnoticed, and word of a mysterious woman appearing near Craignadown has reached Castle Leoch. Mrs. Fitz sends men to investigate, suspecting she may be a runaway or worse. Julia, still reeling from the loss of Henry, clings to the hope that she might find a way back. But every day that passes makes the world of the 20th century feel more like a dream she is slowly forgetting. The tension at Castle Leoch explodes when Malcolm Grant returns with his father, demanding answers about Dougal's assault and pressing harder for a marriage alliance with Ellen. Colum sees an opportunity to settle the feud once and for all, and in front of the gathered clansmen, he makes his intentions clear. The announcement sends a shock through the hall. Ellen is to wed Malcolm. She remains silent, her face unreadable, but inside her heart hammers like a war drum. Across the room, Jocasta watches with a sly smile, seeing her sister's independence threatened in a way she once experienced herself. That night, Ellen steals away to meet Brian one last time before the decision is made final. On the bridge, their words are hurried, desperate. Brian urges her to leave with him, to cast off clan loyalties and forge a life together beyond the reach of the McKenzies and the Frasers. Ellen's eyes fill with tears, torn between the man she loves and the family she cannot abandon. As the first light of dawn breaks over the Highlands, they share a kiss that feels both like a promise and a farewell. Neither knows if they will meet again, or if this night will be their undoing. In the shadows, unseen, Murtagh watches them. His loyalty to Ellen is fierce, but his loyalty to the clan runs just as deep. He knows that what he has witnessed will soon reach Colum's ears, and when it does, there will be no turning back. And so Episode 1 closes, not with resolution, but with the quiet hum of inevitability. Two hearts have found each other across an unbridgeable divide, their fates now entangled with the politics, pride, and grudges of generations. The Highlands are a place where love can be as dangerous as war, and for Ellen McKenzie and Brian Fraser, both may be coming sooner than they think.